Hello and welcome to my mini research project presentation for the E-Society 318 Disruptive Technologies. My name is Miriam Young, and I will be talking about the disruptive technology that I've chosen, which is the moving assembly line or the assembly line. So, first off, the definition or terminology of an assembly line is a production process that breaks down the manufacture of a good into steps that are completed in a predefined sequence from Investopedia. It was a cultural ramification that was spurred on by a newfound existence of production and cheap working labor. This all began to occur in the year 1913 as the manufacturing industry of the automobiles created a new way to increase production while reducing overall cost. I believe that this was one of the biggest impacts on humanity because it expanded the quantity of consumer goods and also allowed those goods to be more accessible for larger populations. And going back to where the assembly line technology really took off was all thanks to Henry Ford quick thinking of a way to utilize a more efficient way to produce a car in order to lower the price. It was also time effective, as normally in that day and age, it would typically take a car to be built in a few days or a day. But with the assembly line, it took a little more than an hour and a half. By having semi-finished products ready to be assembled by standby workers, it would cut a lot of unnecessary steps in half. Of course, this way of advancement also came with its faults, as the repetitive actions caused laborers to grow bored, and similar jobs were popping up from other businesses with similar wages. So the way Ford combated that was increasing the hourly wages to retain those workers. It was costly to retrain new workers on the same procedures than it was to keep existing laborers who already knew the functionality of the assembly line. It was a real game changer as this better formatted sequence was much more efficient, as without it, workers would continue to be stationed in a factory with parts spread out on the floor. And this statement has been echoed from the BBC documentary Up the Genius of Invention about how this innovative technology broke through barriers of mass production that would create a ripple effect of prominent ideas even in modern times. And another example of a disruptive innovative technology that came from this was the concurrent engineering. And it was the having the assembly line in mind. Companies design products this way. It allowed the manufacture of a new product that has been designed with task order, and assembly line layout already predetermined. It basically minimized the job output to a collective stage of development, but more of a modern spin to it. Another example that was made, or examples that was made from the disruptive technology, was the conveyor belt and robotics, as well as just-in-time manufacturing, which is producing parts when they are needed. Another iteration of that could be how the Toyota automobile company would only make cars or trucks or vehicles by the demand of their customers. So they wouldn't have anything on standby. It would only be by the sales or the advertisement of a certain branded car. That's when they would make it. Instead of just having parts on standby, they would have parts ready to go to be assembled. And because humans can only do so much work within a day, and while retaining focus, it was decided to put most of that work and stress on mechanical robots. The robotics was mentioned before, that geared toward making the line faster paced and more efficient than ever before. This also helped replace methods that were considered complex and disconnecting. All of these vital roles of projecting more evolving information from the moving assembly line and making progression of what would normally take several hours to a few minutes, depending on what was being produced, I can safely say that this form of disruptive innovation fit the definition and changed the culture it adopted. That is the end of my video. I thank you all for spending your time watching my presentation.